Today I'm here with Max Langlois.
Crushed it.
Yeah,
Crushed
awesome, sick. We're actually in the HYPE10 agency studio right now, and Max is one of the top agency owners and operators in America and e-commerce, and so we're going to kind of talk shop. We actually just did a little walk, but passed out. Look at him, he's passed out. He's done.
He's had a long day. That was a long walk for him.
Yeah, he's a cute guy, yo.
Yeah.
But yeah, really kind of great to. I know we're in the Foxwell digital community. Which again, a little plug for Andrew. He's best in class. If you want to, like
100%
media buying or top right,
hit me up for a referral code.
I mean, I think collectively, is it 500 million that community is spending on Facebook every month now? I knew it was 300 million.
That wouldn't surprise me at all, right?
I knew it was 300 million.
There are some heavy-hitting agencies, heavy-hitting brands.
Strategists.
I mean, even Herman alone in there.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Herman alone in there is probably 40, 50 mil a month.
Andrew's probably like, I'm going to get to $1 billion. But it's probably not that far
That's
off.
probably the silent goal, no, it's, I'm super appreciative for you having me on, number one. I mean, the community at Foxwell, I feel like, brings together so many people.
Right.
I know we're not going to spend the entire time talking about Foxwell, but
it's not a Foxwell.
We should give him
a
proper shout out.
You didn't get me a referral code. I don't have an affiliate link.
I don't have one either.
Awesome. Okay, we'll get into it. Okay. We're here to really kind of talk about your story. I mean, obviously, it's really hard to build in New York. We kind of talked about that a little bit. And your agency is only 4 years old. Mm-hmm. So kind of let's talk about, a little bit about your upbringing. I think upbringing
for
a lot of founders is you can kind of point to that upbringing. Kind of talk about, have you always lived in New York or where your family's from?
Yeah. So I come from immigrant parents. Mother is from second generation Cuban. So I'm third generation Cuban. Mm-hmm. And then my dad immigrated here from France. So I have a very random amalgamation of two cultures in my household. I've only met one other person that has that combination, right? And the only place that those two people are ever going to meet naturally is in New York.
Right.
So they met here in New York and then moved to the suburbs, had my brother, had me a couple of years later. I had a beautiful upbringing. I have zero complaints about my childhood. Have absolutely loving and adoring parents that have supported me through thick and thin. And won't get emotional in the first minute of the podcast, but truly just having a very blessed family upbringing. Grew up in Westchester, about an hour north. Grew up with a lot of privilege in terms of just, the environment that I grew up in. I had an amazing brother, and had a very beautiful childhood that I really have very little complaints about. My dad is an entrepreneur as well. Got to basically watch him work from home before work from home was a standard protocol. He used to have a little office above the garage, and I remember being 10 years old, going and sitting there and just kind of hanging out. Kind of pretending to do my homework, and he'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I'd just be like, "Oh, I'm working with you." But I always just admired watching him build his own company, a time entrepreneur, always in the manufacturing space. So we chatted a little bit about it on our walk, but he basically does manufacturing. He serves almost as a middleman between Chinese manufacturing plants and U.S. companies, right? So he's worked with Estee Lauder, L'Oreal. He did Michael Jordan's perfume, Paris Hilton's perfume. He also did Donald Trump's perfume, but we don't talk about that as often, honestly. Built a beautiful business. My brother actually now works in that business.
Oh, cool.
I was always more so a troublemaker relative to my brother. Probably going way too deep on this one question that you asked, but whatever.
Cool. I love it.
I was always the troublemaker in the family, and my brother was a straight A student. Went to Cornell, Ivy League educated. Me, on the other hand, I was like, you had to pay me to read books, right? I was always just kind of outside playing around, obsessed with sports, etc. That's kind of a little brief introduction into the childhood that I lived.
No, I love it. That's why we're here. You kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial family sense, and You mentioned that you kind of played sports, kind of like through school. When you kind of got to college, what was that discovery process like? Like, did you know what you wanted to do as soon as you got to college?
Yeah.
Or, I mean,
yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I was lucky because I did play a sport in college. So like my dad, when he immigrated here from France, discovered polo, didn't have any money at all, but somebody paid him $50 to basically tack up horses for him.
Oh,
so he was like putting on the saddle and the reins and all that stuff.
That's cool.
And so I got paid $50 by this guy that he met at a party who was a polo player. And he was like, I will do this for free if you give me some lessons.
Oh, wow.
So he started going back more and more.
Yeah.
And basically, anytime he makes a deal now, he's like, how much polo is this going to buy me? Like, right. So like everything through his lens is about how many chuckers is like a period in polo.
Yeah.
And like, he really has built his dream life, and that now he has a farm in upstate New York and has horses, and he's obsessed with the game. And so he passed on that love of that game to my brother and I.
Oh, wow.
And we used to play as a family. Like our team was the three of us. Yeah. Right. And so I went to SMU in Dallas, Texas. Very different culture relative to New York, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I went there because they had a really good polo program.
Okay.
So I went to the national finals twice. Like I played professionally when I was in Dallas.
Yeah.
I at one point thought that maybe I'm going to go and be a professional polo player.
Yeah.
I was like good enough to play professionally, but at a very low level.
Yeah.
Right. If we were to compare it to like baseball, for instance.
Right. Exactly.
I could have played in the, single A minor leagues.
Yeah.
And tried to, dog it out for years.
Yeah.
But thankfully, saner heads prevailed.
Yeah.
I was studying economics when I was at SMU while I was playing. And really, like, that was because I didn't get into the business school.
Yeah.
That was the first reason.
Yeah.
So, like a 3.6 GPA was the minimum to get into the business school. I didn't achieve that. I think first semester I had like a 2.4, something crazy low like that.
Yeah.
And so I studied economics with financial applications, got a minor in business, and really had no inclination of digital marketing or e-commerce at all.
Yeah.
When I graduated, that was really the first time that I got introduced to the digital marketing, started to recognize like these different ads I was seeing. And in particular, I found out about ClickFunnels.
Yeah.
There was this great ad that ClickFunnels came out with that was like a gold digger prospecting in a river. I was like, man, this is such a good ad. Yeah. And so I started kind of like looking into ClickFunnels. I started looking into like affiliate programs and how to make money online. And I just got completely enthralled in like educating myself and understanding how all this entire ecosystem worked.
Right.
Quickly realized that there was just so much to uncover with SEO and email and Google ads and Facebook ads and everything. Right. And was pretty overwhelmed. It felt like a very daunting task, but thankfully like took a course online and then had the opportunity to work at Metric Digital, which was one of the best decisions I ever made, was joining that agency fresh out of college.
And they're out in New York?
They were in New York, and then run by Kevin Simonson, who has been an awesome mentor to me when I was working there and beyond. And he built an amazing shop. I think we were 35 people or so, and then we were acquired by WPromote. I got to work on Viore, Mack Weldon, Mizzen & Main, Jay McLaughlin, Marine Layer, amazing hard hitting brands. Right. That this was like 2019 through 2021. I was running some awesome apparel brands. Yeah. And, we remember that time. It was a lot easier, right? Yeah. To generate
a pair of Viore shorts back then. I think.
Yeah. There we go. I influenced your buying decision. There we go. I just and I was obsessed. I was in early. I was staying late. I was just completely enthralled in it. And I actually, funny enough, 2 weeks into having my job at Metric Digital, I called my mom and I said, "This isn't complicated. These guys aren't smarter than I am. I'm gonna start my own shop." Yeah. My mom was like, "Okay, take it easy. Yeah. You just started. You have no idea what you're talking about. So on and so forth." But it wasn't like I was gonna go and do it then. But I always had an inclination that I was going to actually create a performance marketing industry or agency. Yeah. And that just happened to come to fruition like 3 years later than that, that phone call to my mom.
Yeah. What do you think, like, besides maybe just being frustrated with maybe certain, like, flows or practices? Obviously, every entrepreneur feels like they see an angle that they can kind of do better. Like, when you opened up your own shop, like, did you start with one service? Was it multi-service? I mean, how did you kind of tackle that?
Yeah. So I started it in 2021, at which time creative strategy was starting to become more important, but still wasn't kind of the primary conversation. Right. It was still in its gestation period. Right. And so it was just media buying. That was my background. I was fortunate that at Metric Digital, we learned how to do paid social and paid search.
Nice.
It was one person per account, right? So you had to learn both and you had to be good at both. And you weren't pigeonholed to just being a Facebook ads guy, right? So we had an understanding of kind of the holistic business level perspective. When I eventually left WPromote and I went in-house for a little bit at this skincare brand called Bubble, what I started to understand was there were inefficiencies in our service offering, both at Metric Digital and at WPromote. Like, no knock on those agencies whatsoever, but we weren't having conversations around holistic business level metrics.
Right.
And in 2021, we were pretty early to having conversations around gross margin, having an understanding of what your customer acquisition cost needed to be, what your repeat purchase rate looked like, what your LTV was going to look like, right? Now, the industry, I think, has caught up. Yeah. But in the early days, we were basically doing media buying and then being proper consultants in terms of interpretation of your financial numbers. Right. And although it's crazy in today's environment, like, I still hop on intro calls and I'll be like, hey, what's your customer acquisition cost? Right. And some brand owners don't know. Right. Right. And even some heads of marketing don't know. Right. So there's still a massive, lack of understanding of the fiscal, implications on your business in relation to your marketing expenditure, and in particular media buying, where people are just not tying 1 and 2 together, sadly. And so I think we were very early to that. But at that point in time when we launched, it was just media buying. And then at one point, like 18 months into starting the agency, I told like Andrew Fox this. I was like, I just hired a head of email and a graphic designer, and I was all smug, and I was like, we're going to do email and creative now. It's going to go super well. And of course, neither of those 2 team members are still with us. The email department does not exist anymore. So I've definitely learned a lot along the way and made plenty of mistakes as I've run my first company. But in its current orientation right now, HYPE10 does 3 core things. We do paid media management, we do creative, and we do landing pages. We do all of them well, and all of them are geared towards acquiring new customers profitably. And I think that we are one of the best-in-class shops. I think our growth trajectory speaks to that. We launched just 4 years ago, and we now have a team of 25. We work with 41 brands currently. We've had the opportunity to work with some amazing brands like Plunge.com, CrossFit, Marine Layer, Dagny Dover, Dose, etc. And hopefully, that trend continues and we continue to scale and grow. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is our retention of our talent is really, really good. So we've only been around for 4 years, and naturally we tack on a couple more people every year, but our average retention right now is 2 years. Wow. So
that's huge for agencies.
It feels super validating that I'm building in the right way, that we're building in the right way.
That's awesome.
I don't even remember what you asked me. I just riffed for 5 minutes.
Awesome. I mean, to give the people a little bit of context too, Matt, I mean, you're kind of rehashing what we just talked about for the last hour a little bit. So I think I
wanted to try to give context.
Just give context. This is really cool because we're basically consolidating an hour into 20, 30 minutes. That's good. So on that note right now, I kind of have something I talk to my internal team about a lot right now. Okay, you guys are focused on paid, landing, creative. That's super important. How are you sort of thinking about AI in the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to creative, to media buying, and just really kind of customer acquisition?
So we're we're in the process of basically building a tool, right? So we were chatting a little bit about this earlier, but I have a very clear understanding of what I want to build, and now I'm trying to find the right partner to help us make this come to fruition. But in essence, I want to try to find opportunities to save our employees' time. I think that AI will augment the work that we do. I don't think that it's going to replace anybody on our team. If anything, naturally the technology is going to improve further and further, but that's the way that I personally see it. And that's how I want to build my organization. I have no intention of being like, oh, great, like I can move my gross, margins to X because I don't have to hire as many people. Like one of the greatest privileges as an entrepreneur is employing people and supporting him or her and supporting their families. And that is part of my core value. And so regardless of opportunities in AI in the future, like my team knows that like they always have a job here, right? I think that's important to know. In terms of how we currently utilize it, we do have AI wrappers that are heavily tied to our creative work stream, mostly for to be leveraged for as an aid for the creative strategist. We are not sending our clients anything that's like AI enabled video content with like an AI avatar or AI statics or anything along those lines. I see the output. I think it's okay. I know that some people are having wins there. But for me, I think to the end consumer, it can be pretty apparent in its current orientation. Who knows in 6 months to a year, right? It may not be distinguishable, or it's going to be indistinguishable from an actual, UGC creator. At that point in time, then we'll start leveraging it more. We work with a lot of elevated brands. Elevated brands do not want an AI avatar talking about their product, right? And they need to maintain a certain semblance of elevation and aesthetic, right? We work with a lot of apparel brands, and that's very hard to leverage there. But what we can do is basically leverage qualitative insights, feed them into an LLM, and then basically have it spit out kind of like the 5 most common questions that people, comment on our ads, or what are the 5 most frequent things that, come up in reviews, things to inform the decisions that we're making, because its ability to digest or ingest data and spit out incredibly valuable information that would have taken us hours, you can't replace that. So most of the things that we're thinking about building now are in relation to that. So I think most e-commerce brands have so much qualitative data at their disposal that they're not leveraging properly, or they know they should be leveraging it, but just aren't, because it's hard. It's hard to open up, Facebook Ads Manager and read through thousands of comments. That takes time. And when you have 1,000 things on your plate, you're not going to necessarily do that. However, if you can, and then on the flip side, if you have post-purchase surveys enabled, you have reviews, you have Reddit forums, you have customer service tickets. There are so many different places where there's so much rich qualitative data to inform the decisions that you're making in email, in organic social, in your paid ads. And I think they're oftentimes just in silos. The paid media team doesn't talk to the customer service team, so on and so forth. So what I want to create is a tool that can basically consolidate all of that information, and then you can just communicate through it, and ask it questions. Hey, like I was talking about, like a classic LLM, but with all of this rich, deep qualitative insights to be had.
You should also export the company Slacks. To kind of merge with that.
I like that.
That'd be really cool.
So like that, it's in, like I said, very early stages, trying to find someone to help me build it. But like, I'm really excited about it. I had that idea like 18 months ago. It's just been like, okay, when's the time?
Definitely feels like it.
So I think it's we're leveraging it right now. We have like this whole process for like AI wrappers, but it's manually intensive still, and we're going to try to find ways to fully automate it on behalf of our clients. I know there's a lot of different like agents that like Tripwell's pushing, different like Moby agents they have, Motion's pushing their different agents, etc. And I for sure think there's a use case there for many people, but if you're highly skilled in this industry and have your certain protocols and processes,
right.
I don't think it's necessarily moving the needle in terms of performance for your brands just yet.
Right. Yeah, that's good. So one thing I kind of like to ask people is kind of like, where do you see yourself in the next few years? But you're kind of doing something that a lot of agency owners are doing now, which is launching their own Shopify brand. We don't have to get in the weeds. We can talk very generically about it, but like, why launch a brand?
Sure.
Is it a distraction from your growth?
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think firstly, like, there's like a couple reasons why. The first is I've always wanted to.
Yeah.
And the second is we have the team.
Yeah.
So all partners in HYPE10 have are partners now in this new endeavor.
Oh, cool.
And because of that, our fixed cost is basically going to be $2,000 a month. Right. And probably will be kind of in perpetuity, or at least for the first couple of years until hopefully we scale to a certain point where we can bring on people full time.
Right.
Given the fact that we have 5 partners in the agency, right? Each of us has our own skill set that we bring to, version. It's not like we're duplicative in our skill set. Our gross margins before tariffs was 89%. And I should also provide context. Sorry, this is my first podcast I'm ever being on. So I'm just riffing and then I'm realizing they have zero context.
No, that's good.
So for context, it's going to be a beauty brand. I'm going very stealth with it. We're launching in about 2 months. So that's going to be like July 15th or so.
Yeah.
And so pre-tariff, because it is manufactured in China.
Right.
Pre-tariffs, it was 89% gross margin. And now post-tariffs, it's 84% gross margin. So still pretty good.
Right.
So that's our first PO, right? So we have a repeat purchase product that should lend itself well to generating some favorable LTV. It's a consumable and high gross margin profile. And there are competitors in the space, but we think that we can do better than them.
Right.
And we believe that we have the skill set necessary to grow an e-commerce brand.
Right.
We're not, I would be foolish to think that there aren't going to be a ton of challenges.
Right.
Right. And I have been thinking about launching this one brand for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not something, to your point, that I took lightly. Right. Yeah. And like spent a lot of time thinking, is this going to, deter my focus from my, current business that's going very well, so on and so forth. I think one of the benefits, just from an entrepreneurial perspective, is an e-commerce brand, if it goes well, can scale a lot faster.
That's true.
Relative to an agency.
Especially with insight you have.
Yeah. And I love HYPE10. I am so proud of the business that I have built. I am so proud of the team. I am so proud of the services that we offer. But there are inherent challenges in that our growth rate, even though we're growing like 50% year on year consistently, it's still 50% year on year. Whereas on e-commerce, we have brands that are growing 250% year on year plus.
Right.
So I want to also just have that experience of spending my own money on ads as well. We were chatting a little bit about that. It's a different experience altogether, right? We'll see, I preach oftentimes like patience is an optimization. Yeah. And I preach that with my team and like with clients. Who knows if I'm going to be that patient when it's my own dollars going into it, right?
That was actually going to be one of my last questions. My last question was this, so we'll just do it.
Yeah.
And, in your shoes, especially like with a lot of client interfacing, you probably think brand owners have it wrong. Or like when they have certain ideas they want to bring to the table and you're just like, no.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm also having a self-reflection too as a brand owner. Yes, I own an agency. Yes, I have a brand. Yeah. But it's also like, for me too, it's like I'm realizing I'm the bottleneck with certain growth.
Sure.
And I've been the bottleneck with certain growth. And I think like what's interesting is last year, I really had to develop systems and processes because as we were scaling to 10 million, I knew like I couldn't do it alone. Yeah. And I'd kind of gotten there kind of by myself to a degree. I was working kind of, with a graphic designer on some kind of assets, but for the most part, I was doing email, I was doing paid, I was doing social. Yeah. We're up 76% over last year, But a lot of it now is not necessarily being done by me. It's still my processes and stuff like that. And I'm still, if I'm being honest, I love email, and I haven't given away the paid social aspect, but I gave away the organic social part of it.
Yeah.
But what's been kind of cool is like that self-realization that, man, again, I'm the bottleneck.
Sure.
So what advice would you give yourself?
I'm thinking about me being a bottleneck in HYPE10 too.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, what blind spots do you think you're going to have? Because I believe a lot of it's emotional for us, right? So like, how are you going to be able to kind of like listen to people around you?
Yeah. I think it's a really good question. It's like, you got me stumped there,
Especially
honestly.
like when you're a CEO type of guy, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like used to making all the decisions, and again, it's real.
Yeah, and I think it's very real. Like the one thing with like our agency is we have predictable revenue coming in, and it's a very, very different business model,
right?
And we have from day one been profitable, right? And always been profitable,
right?
And hopefully always will be profitable. Right. Whereas there are so many unknowns heading into this, right? And like one of the things that actually keeps me up at night is like, I don't know if you've ever talked to anybody who's experienced this, but it's becoming more frequent as of late, where when you launch your ads for the first time as a new brand, it's like $150 CPM on Facebook. And it's like, cool. And you talk to Meta and they're like, yeah, it's just like, maybe try a new creative, test a different landing page. And you're like, okay, but like, why is it $150? Like my click-through rate is pretty good, so on and so forth. Right. And there's like no rhyme or reason for it. And I've seen a lot of brands just for like 8 months just have to spend. Brutal. And that hits different. Right. If that's your own money. Right. And I don't know if I would have a plan of action if for whatever reason we launched and that was the circumstance, right? Like would have to completely rethink our growth plans and our strategies and like go heavy into like TikTok and Google and like influencer as an example. Right. So there are things, to your point, that are always going to be outside of our control. Yeah. Regardless of those things, I think we have high levels of confidence in the product, in the branding, and in our experience that we're going to be ready to meet the demands of launching this new business, regardless of what comes our way. I think I have learned and gotten better about divvying up more and more of my work over the course of the last year or so, right? So in likening it to HYPE10 and growing the agency, like I was doing sales, I was doing finance, I was doing clients, I was doing every aspect of everything in the early days, and really struggled when I built out the team to like give up clients that I had been working on for 3 years. Right. Like that's hard. Because it's like, no, like in part they're with us with HYPE10, the ego comes out because I'm special. Because I'm the best media, right? And then slowly over time you start to, I don't know, for whatever reason, like talking with team members, talking with clients, et cetera, realizing, no, it's not you that's necessarily special in this equation. And your team is now better than you, so step aside. And let them do their job. A great circumstance, like I've been working with Marine Layer for on and off for 7 years, right? So Marine Layer was my first big client when I was at Metric Digital. And then they at WPromote, and then we had about a year or so where we didn't work together. And then I started HYPE10 and then they came over. And so I personally ran that business, I know that business like the back of my hand. I've been involved for so long. And that I just gave off, to somebody else on the team probably 6 months ago. Wow. And they're hitting new highs. Yes. Yeah. Awesome. And exactly, right? And it's just like, wow, okay. Like this could have happened a year earlier if you just got out of your own way. And
that's like the biggest lesson for me this year.
Yeah. Big time.
That's the one I'm really learning.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, you want to have certain element of control on things, but you are 100% a bottleneck when you're trying to manipulate and control and give your take on every little thing. When in reality, once you start trusting in your team, then also you start building the business that you want to own. Right. Like so many entrepreneurs, I feel like it's such a cliche, but they build a business and they've just built themselves a job that kind of pays them a little bit better than what they could get out in the ecosystem. Maybe not, it's like, why are you building this business?
Right.
Are you building it for freedom and more time to spend with your family and your kids? Are you building it, because you're just like power hungry? Like, I don't know. Everyone has their different reason. Right. But like for me, like empowering my team is one of my core reasons. Right. And giving them more opportunities to shine, to grow, to expand their network, et cetera, is far more fulfilling, than me trying to control. Yeah.
I love that. That's a great ending. Yeah. Just on that note, are we calling it X or Twitter?
We're calling it Twitter.
Okay. All right. Cool. So basically, I'm kind of ending these things. I might change it up in the future, but like, what's the best thing about Twitter and what's the worst thing about Twitter right now? Because, it's been evolving so much.
Sure. I think Elon became really annoying on Twitter. I think that's the worst part. I actually unfollowed him recently. Yeah. It's just too much.
Elon.
Yeah, it's way too much Elon. It's like way too much just like Republican propaganda for my taste. Not to get political, but...
No, I mean, honestly, he basically jacked the system. It's like free speech, but I'm just going to give you one side.
Yeah, it's just like every other thing was Elon. So I think that's one of the worst things. But I will also say like the eCommerce. I think the conversations that are unfolding within the community as of late aren't that exciting. Is what I'll say. And I think it speaks to general concern and the fact that people are struggling, because you aren't having that many people posting screenshots right now.
No.
And I think everyone is very apprehensive to close out this year. So I think I wish there was a little bit more dialogue happening in terms of like, hey, times are tough, like, here's what we're doing. Here's, some things that have shown some promise. Like, hopefully this helps.
Right.
I think it's become a little boring.
Yeah. I mean, earlier this week I tweeted out that, yes, I have a store in the top 1% of Shopify, but I've also been on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a great tweet.
And like, I'm going to start a newsletter around that, and because we're going into an era for sure where people are going to have to learn to really how to fight.
Yeah.
If you want to stay in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to start this newsletter necessarily to talk about, just one side of it, because there's also a lot of information I still don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of information to kind of help you win, but not necessarily how to navigate like certain failures or risk mitigation or, what opportunities you have from a legal standpoint, or all these things that we're just not really unsure. We're kind of unsure about. So I think it is going to be, a hard year, but I also think it's going to be a good year. And I think it's an opportunity for people to grow, and that's really what it's about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think also like I was thinking about this recently. I remember in like 2020. Do you remember like CCPA came out?
CCPA.
It was a California Consumer Protection Act.
Oh, yeah.
So we had to change, and this is 2020, 2021, something like that. And everyone was bugging out because now the Pixel wasn't working as well in California, and California was a big market. It's like, think about that in relative terms to what we've endured as a community over the course of the last 4 years. It is peanuts. It is nothing. And at that moment, it was massive. And then we have ATT, then we have, cookie deprecation. Now we have, whatever it might be, tariffs or otherwise. And I think no matter what I love about this community is that we come together, we figure it out together, we make it through, and there are so many cool people that you get to meet and interact with and share their stories and hear their stories. And I love that you guys are doing this. I think this is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the strong will survive, and the ones that are really going to fight through this are going to make it out better because of it. I was on a podcast, or I was on a panel at our event like a couple weeks back, and Libby, who is one of the co-founders of Fulton, which is an insole brand and longtime client of ours. And she actually said something super controversial. The question was posed to her, like, what's something controversial that you believe in? She made the claim that, like, I think that tariffs might actually be good for our industry in the long run. And I think that a lot of brands have become overly promotional. I think that consumers maybe have been just like a little bit you know, I don't know, privileged to a certain degree to have all these different brands, speaking to them, so on and so forth, et cetera. And that in the long run, we're going to like learn a lot coming out of this. And I hope that that's the case. Right. And I think we all do.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely have kind of had that thought too, just because I've been through kind of so many iterations in my career. They were just learning opportunities.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's what it is. You know, being in business is about solving problems. And do you enjoy the problem you're solving? You know, and so I do enjoy it. So
yeah. And I think I've spoken to founders, whether it be like on the SaaS side or otherwise, and a lot of people are freaking out. And I think it's like, just focus on what you can control, right? Focus on your output.
Right.
Everything else is not within our control.
Right.
That's okay. But you adapt, you know, you learn from it and keep going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being on this episode of Share Your
it.
Story. Appreciate you sharing your story. And again, where can people find you and, you know, the agency and...
HYPE10agency.com. You can drop a form in there if you'd like to chat. And I'm on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just type in Max Langlois. It should come up.
Yeah. You're definitely in the Foxwell community.
I promise. Join the Foxwell community. That is the primary learning here.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, man.
I appreciate it, buddy.
Right,
that was awesome.
Thanks.